So welcome to another Curiosity show from Cheryl and Dale, and we're so excited today to have with us Mr. Clifton Warren.
Yes, I'm very curious to learn about his extraordinary skill sets when it comes to sales and marketing. So I know it's going to be a cracker show.
Fantastic. So Clifton, would you like to introduce yourself a bit to us?
Well, hi, I'm Clifton. Happy to be here. And for the last 30 years or so, I've been involved in sales and marketing at the corporate level, in my own business, and I specialize in services. I've written a few books and I'm going to write a few more books. And I enjoy really helping professionals, helping firms, helping clients get from here to there faster to achieve their objectives and goals through better selling and marketing themselves.
So I'm really curious, just to set things off, perhaps you could provide a bit of an explanation as to what the difference is between sales and marketing.
Well, marketing is really about creating an awareness of the particular issue or problem and so forth. And sales is convincing that person you're the best, you're convincing the buyer you're the best person to do that. Now, however, when you move into services area that we're all in, sales and marketing are interchangeable because we're talking about ourselves and what we market and sell. So it's almost one of the same and so forth. But really, one's about hopefully creating a need, awareness of a need, and two, convincing them you're the best person to solve that for them.
And what would you say is the biggest obstacle for professionals knowing that they need help?
Not knowing they need help. So let's say from a sales and marketing space, the area I work in, this is something that's learnable, sales and marketing, but it's something that's essential in all areas of our life. And matter of fact, in the school system, I believe persuasion and sales and marketing and presentations are core skills that need to be taught. And sales and marketing, for instance, is across all of our lives. Your doctor is selling you on better health and take care of yourself. Teachers are persuading you on subjects and educating yourself. In the workplace, we're selling our ideas for either a new job or a new product or anything like that. So sales is an integral part of our whole life, all around and so forth. And so when many people are, if I work with professionals and they are struggling in the area of sales or don't understand the area of sales, they haven't been taught, unfortunately. And their vocation, we can turn a doctor out in 10 years, but teach them nothing about bedside manner and how to sell himself. And so it's not something that's taught in your vocation or your trade, but it's a learnable skill and it's essential for success.
So what you're really saying then is that, and I love what you said just then about the bedside manner, so important. And what jumped out at me then was relationships. So essentially we're talking about sales and marketing being a relationship between the seller and the buyer, the marketer and the buyer. So can you explain a little bit about that and how that works?
Yeah, it's a relationship business, sales and marketing, selling, no question about it. And the best type of sales that we have is relationship sales. We don't want to, we're not selling, particularly in our line of work in the services area, we're not selling commodities, widgets or whatever a widget is. We're not selling the tangible widgets. We're selling our smarts and our IP and our intellectual property. And that's done over a relationship that you build with someone. And that relationship can be a combination of professional and personal, but generally it's professional. And it's really getting to know a buyer's hot button needs, issues, challenges, concerns, things they're struggling with. And through that process, you're educating them through that and have some ideas and sharing ideas on how they can overcome that. So that's really about building relationships. It all starts with identifying the hot button issues of a particular buyer, of your buyer.
So then identifying those hot button issues, let's play devil's advocate for a minute and consider that someone, you mentioned the doctor and the bedside manner and selling health. So let's say a doctor is trying to sell a particular medication or suggesting a particular medication to a patient or client, but in fact, a healthier lifestyle or a change of diet would be more appropriate. So how does the buyer work with the seller to make sure that there's trust in the relationship and that they're actually buying the right thing?
Well, if the doctor's done his job correctly. He spent some time and taken a thorough examination of that patient, and hopefully have known that patient for over a period of time, and know the background, the history, everything about them. And so that's how that trust is developed there. He's working from that patient's self-interest. And that's what we all should be working from the buyer's self-interest. And through that, the trust starts to build from there. You can't rush this, you can't fake it. Either you have it or you don't. And if you don't have trust, you got to ask more questions. You got to build that bond and take as long as you need to achieve that.
Yes, that's so true. One of the best and most interesting jobs I got this year, I started chatting to the guy midway through last year.
Yeah.
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 So.
The longest sale I ever been in was 6 years to close.
Wow.
And there's a number of, it was with an organization. There was a number of buyers going in and out, but we had a good process to follow through. I had someone come to me last year during the pandemic. She first heard me speak 5 years earlier, but she stayed on my list. I nurtured her. Unbeknown to me, I was doing it, and she had a need, and I was the right person for her. So these things are passive; they can sit in the background.
So how do you nurture potential clients?
A variety of ways. I think the first thing is identifying who the client is, who your target is, and being very clear about your value that you're offering, and very, very clear about the target you're offering. So when I use the word nurturing and prospect, that's someone I've probably have spoken to, or they've heard me speak and so forth. Might have had a conversation, but for a variety of reasons, they weren't ready to go ahead. And so, but once I made contact with someone, they get into my universe and they receive my newsletter. They might receive some other articles from me. I'll just keep them up abreast. I might do an occasional phone call and send them ideas. So once again, this is something that can happen relatively short, or it can be over a number of years, because I don't know when that buyer's need is going to be a priority to where they need me. Only they can judge that. I'm just there to be there when they're ready.
So would you say you create an environment that is attractive, and then people become part of your world, and then they call on you? Is that kind of how you would describe it?
Sort of. I want to be absolutely clear of my value. And I passionately believe that my value proposition that I'm offering to our company is to their benefit. And once I have that, I'm going to do everything within my power to do that. Let me give you switch examples. I have a background in insurance. And years ago, I was selling corporate insurance. And we had a company that desperately needed to have a corporate travel policy for kidnapping, ransom, and a major catastrophe when the executives are traveling. He wasn't convinced he needed it. I did everything in my persuasive power to help him eventually buy the policy. 6 months after buying the policy, they had a major tragedy. Airplane crashed. He thanked me profusely for being so persistent on persuading him and so forth. So I always work from the buyer's self-interest and best interests along the way. I understand totally what I'm selling, what I'm offering, and how it can help them and benefit them.
So I'm really curious about this then. You've mastered the art of selling, and clearly you've got a history there in how you've been able to achieve that. So your greatest lessons in being a seller and a marketer have come from a balance between being the buyer as well as a seller, or more so in your marketing and sales area of expertise?
It's come from on-the-job training and experience, no different than a teacher or anyone else. The best way to learn is to be out there in the field. So I've made a lot of mistakes. I've fallen down, had bloody nose. but it's really being out there and learning on the job and keep going back and perfecting, rehearsing, looking at different ways of doing it, and so forth, and being very clear in the direction you want to head for your business, and being very clear the direction your buyers are heading. So it's a combination of lots of things. There's no one or the other, but you always have to be looking for ways to raise that bar within yourself and get better.
Oh no. That's okay. I'll cut this bit out till it comes back.
You still there?
It just
Ah,
froze. So if you wouldn't mind repeating that, because it just froze.
Okay. Let me rewind the tape. It's a combination of lots of things, but it's on the job training. It's in the field. That's the basic experience you're going to get in life. And you know, you're going to fall down. You're going to scratch your knee. You're going to get a bloody nose. But it's being clear on what you want to do, and just keep doing it over and over again. Selling is a learnable skill, like anything else. But it takes deliberate practice, just like an actor or any other profession. And that's what you have to do. So it's not one or the other. It's a combination of lots of little things.
mm. Do you know, when you were discussing that, then I had visions of how it looks today compared to how it would have looked prior to the internet, and what sales used to look like, you know, a number of years ago. And then I sort of went fast forward to, you know, you mentioned the fact that you're from the finance sector, and, you know, moving fast forward to today, when you walk into a bank and there's barely a teller, or, you know, you walk into a store and there's not customer service any longer because it's all self-serve and self-pay that's been set up. So when you're out and about, how much notice do you take of the sales techniques of these major companies and what they're doing, and what that actually means for the customer relationship?
Well, it depends on what area of the market that you're looking at. So, you know, Gordon Ramsay doesn't walk around at McDonald's or grill and thinking, oh, what's the food quality like? But he probably would at a high-end restaurant as such. So I'm not about so much focusing on business to consumer marketing, although I take aware of that because there are lessons learned everywhere. You know, selling itself hasn't changed in 200 years. The basics have not changed from the time the Egyptians were selling oils, you know, to other parts of the world. Other things have happened along the way. You mentioned technology and other advances, but the basics of selling have not changed. And it's a matter of taking care of the customers. Now, when we look at a retail setting or supermarket setting, they're selling to the masses. And so they eventually will get their share. When you're in services, it's a different, it's actually the other way around and so forth. You're selling to the niche or to a small segment. So your techniques and strategies are a little bit different, but you have to have a mindset. And I learned this years ago, sell with the masses, eat with the classes, meaning you got to have an open mind on both things.
Wonderful. And what do you see in the legal sector as far as how they're looking at or not looking after their clients very well? What do they need to be doing differently, do you think?
Legal, it's interesting. So if you're talking about the neighborhood lawyer, family lawyer, and so forth, and some of them are struggling, they need to just really focus and not try to be all things to all people. Has some speciality and so forth like that. And some do this better than others, so forth. Most of them are very poor at marketing themselves. Once again, they spent, you know, 7 years becoming a lawyer between the articles and everything else, but not one of those topics where we covered the subject of marketing or selling. And so a lot of these guys are trial by fire, not very good at it. Hence, either they make partner or they become a struggling lawyer out in the suburbs somewhere. That doesn't apply to everyone. At the other side of the law business, that's heavily branded. That's top tier advisory work, and once again, they market a little bit differently. They make rain. They build on relationships. Chances are they have connections at the corporate and government levels, and they have some clear buyers. But in all those cases, they're very clear on what their value is, what they're targeting, and what they're selling, what they're offering. So clarity, clarity, clarity is the number one starting point of all this.
And how do people in the marketing space? How does someone's personality come out in that way, and they differentiate through their personality?
Yeah, you mean from when you're selling to a buyer, or from what?
Yep.
Okay, I think it's you still got to be you, but I think the key is focusing on the buyer, focusing on their problems, their challenges. They don't care less about yours. And so people don't want to hear I have a 5 steps or I have X number of books. They want to know about their issues and their problems. And when I take that and put questions around that, they become very interested. And they become very interested in me because I'm asking them questions that they're struggling with that no one else has asked them before. Particularly a CEO, sometimes, when you're CEO of a firm, it's a lonely job. You can't talk to your chairman because he's employed you to run the place. You can't talk to people below you because they think you have all the answers. And you can't talk to a spouse at home because she doesn't want to hear it. He or she doesn't want to hear it. So it's a lonely place. So when someone like us comes along and asking provocative, penetrating questions about his challenges and issues, they love it. They have someone to talk to that understands them.
So what type of questions would that be?
It could be depending on the issues. Well, let me give you an example. In my particular case, I might ask a question: are you satisfied with the amount of organic growth you have achieved in your business over the last 3 to 5 years? Are you happy with the retention that you have with your clients? In other words, you're retaining a good number of your clients. I'm gonna ask them, what direction are you headed in over the next 3 to 5 years? What are you focusing on? What are your customers demanding of you? The cliche question, what's keeping you awake at night, is too broad. Yeah. So I want to hit them between the eyes, and usually I've done some research, and so I know how to angle my questions along the way there. The combination between closed and open questions.
Sorry, what a combination between what?
Closed questions and open questions. So a closed question can be answered with a yes or no.
Yep.
And an open question, they have to get more broad. Now, there's a place for both. A closed question can be used to confirm something. So I understand that your primary niche market is the airline industry. Is that correct? They'll say yes or no. That confirms my research. Well, at the same time, I'll say, what are your plans for expanding your presence within the airline industry? They have to give me a very broad answer on that.
Fantastic. Did you want to say something, Cheryl?
No, go ahead.
Now, you have, I think, written a book about winning strategy, winning game plan. Is that right?
Sort of. That topic's within there. Yeah.
Because that would have to interest everyone, surely. I was wondering if you could speak a bit on that.
Yeah, it's really about having a game plan. And sales is a great foundation to do other things with. So what I mean by that is, whether you're employed or self-employed, if you have to create a sales plan, game plan for your business, that also expands into other areas of your life. The same techniques apply for your health, fitness. The techniques are exactly the same. So it provides a very good foundation for that. For game plan is really nothing more than understanding where you're going, who your buyer is. I call it the 5 Ps. It's about your positioning, where you're going to be positioned in the marketplace, how you're going to package your expertise so you become attractive to someone. It's about promotion, how you're going to get the word out there, let them know that you're there. It's about your performance, making sure that you do good work once you are there. And then it's about persuasion, on being able to communicate that you're the best person for the job. So it's the 5 Ps. And out of all that, I like the packaging one. The analogy I like to use there, in the old Bugs Bunny cartoon, there's the Pepe Le Pew. And Pepe Le Pew is a skunk that was always after this cat in France. And Pepe just had the wrong packaging. uh, for his good. But if he would have just taken a bath or put on some cologne, he might have repackaged himself and had success. And a lot of sellers turn the buyers off because they stink. And they stink not physically, they stink because their ideas, they haven't done their research, they haven't packaged themselves, they're not talking about the buyer's interests. They're only after trying to sell themselves. And buyers aren't interested in that. They have just too much going on and they move on.
You know, listening to you, I'm hearing a lot of terrific general information and tips for people who work in the service industry, particularly those that are self-employed, I'm sure as well. I'm wanting to hear some stories now. Have you got any cracker stories? Perhaps I'll start with one. You know, I remember many years ago when I owned a travel agency and I not understanding the sales process. For the life of me, I couldn't understand how it would be possible to sell somebody a holiday that was more expensive than what they could afford. But it worked. You know, the good salespeople were able to do that. I certainly couldn't, but the team around me were capable of doing that. So, any great stories around particular cases that you've seen have been very successful with those that you've worked with?
Yeah, I think it's more lessons learned. So when I was early in my career, I was trying to sell to an executive. I was selling information products. I was trying to sell to an executive and I was trying to be a big shot. I was all 24, 25 years old. So I went into his office and I sat down this chair where I basically sunk to the ground and he was basically his desk looking down at me. Um, I was trying to look important. So his secretary came in and asked if I wanted some coffee. And I said, sure. I don't even drink coffee, didn't like coffee. It was too hot. And so as the meeting opened up, it was over in about 2 minutes. I was stuck with a hot cup of coffee and this person's waiting for me to leave his office and so forth. I got better as time went on and so forth. And there's all kind of, but I've had some great salespeople I've come across that have helped me make purchases I wouldn't have ordinarily have made, but they took the time to educate me and talk me through it, showed me examples, and I walked out with some with a terrific products or services.
So, who's been your greatest mentor when it comes to your sales skills and techniques?
There isn't one person. I'm a combination of lots of things. You know, and Austin Kleon wrote a book, Steal Like an Artist. I'm a thief, and and I have stolen from lots of people, both uh, in-person books and so forth. And so I'm a combination of lots of those things and continue to be a combination of lots of those things. No one has a monopoly on ideas or approaches. And so I treat life as a buffet. And you know, you go to the old Sizzler restaurant, they had a big buffet there, and you didn't have to eat all the food. So I go and I take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And next time I go to a buffet, I might need a different a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I think that's how we always get better. We keep looking for that little bit extra that we might need.
Fantastic. And could you share with us one of your favorite clients and their success story?
Oh, there's been many, but there's this lady, I'll call her Jay in just in case she happens to listen to this. She was a brand new salesperson, never sold before, and really didn't know where to start. But she got a job as a salesperson at a very good salary, but she was struggling. And her boss told me she's struggling. We don't know if we're going to be able to keep her or not. And so I spent some time with her out in the field. And through a period of weeks, several weeks, um, she learned the basics. She watched me. I watched her, critiqued her, give her feedback. And she rose up to become a very, very successful salesperson. And now today she's running her own business. And part of that, well, I'm convinced, was the foundation she learned in sales along the way. And I get a number of people thanking me, saving their careers because they simply were stuck and didn't know how to go about doing this. And I helped them to unpack it and tailor something that works for their personality and their style. And yeah, they're forever grateful.
Yeah, I think sales, it's a bit like my job helping people to communicate better, is
Mm.
that people tend to think that it's sort of an innate born thing in them, that it's not something that can be learnt. And you're right, oh, they're a great salesperson, oh, they're no good, as if it's something you're born with.
Yeah, that's interesting. I watched an interview the other day with Morgan Freeman, the actor, and he was asked the question, where did you get your great, where did you develop that great voice? Because he has one of the greatest voices in Hollywood for doing, lots of different characters. And he said he had to develop that voice, and it was developed through his coach when he was first beginning. He says they was help me find my voice, and then they train you how to use that voice. And so, yeah, it's like anything else.
Yeah. Do you think in Australia, it seems to me in Australia that people are less interested in being coached in lots of different areas? It seems to me in the States and in Europe that people are actually keener to develop themselves. Maybe we're a little bit lazy or something here. Do you think it's less prominent here?
I don't think it's less prominent. I think it's no one wants to be coached, but people would like to have help increasing their sales. People need a hand on improving their voice or improving their presentation skills. They don't call it coaching. So that's about really finding a hot button issue and addressing it. And they may not use the word coaching or mentoring or anything like that. I seldom use it myself. I'll say we're going to work together to improve on these three areas here.
And so when someone meets you, what do you call yourself?
Well, I got a couple of different ways I package myself, but if someone meets me for the first time, I simply say I work with professionals on how so they can sell and market themselves better, or I train professionals on how to market and sell, and then we take it from there. But you lead me on to the topic of what I call value proposition. That's part of one of the P's of packaging your
Yes.
expertise, and you need to have a good value proposition to when you're asked that question, what do you do? And the worst way to answer that question when someone asks you what you do is to describe what you do. So I'm an accountant, or I'm a bookkeeper, or I'm a voice coach. Instead, the most effective way is to say something like, I help people who are struggling to present themselves in public. Or I work with, my case, I work with um, uh, executives and business owners who are struggling to attract new clients. And people will get that. They go, oh, tell me more about that. And that's where I want them to be. Say, how does that work? And once they do that, I have a fish on the line. I may not land them, but I have a fish on the line. That's all I want. And then getting back to something earlier we spoke about, that fish on the line may not buy today, but they may buy down the track. So I need to nurture them. Once I've got them on the line, I'm going to make sure I keep feeding them bait and ideas, throwing occasional sizzles. So hopefully one day when that need of theirs becomes a very high need or high priority need, I'm the person they call.
And
Yes,
so
not always for them. Sorry, go on.
sorry. No, it leads us back to that, perhaps the past and now the present, and the famous elevator statement, and having to master your unique proposition in just 7 words. Is that still relevant?
Yes and no. Forget about the 7 words. And forget about the word elevator pitch or anything like that. Matter of fact, remove the word pitch from your vocabulary. Instead, you want to craft something that addresses their needs, whether that's done in 1 word or 20 words, as long as they can get the essence of it. See, the idea behind a value proposition is for someone to recognize what you do and thinking, I get that, sort of thing. It's our job to educate the buyers and the public on what we do. It's not the other way around. And the worst thing about elevator pitches, everyone throws that term around. But years ago, I was in Toastmasters, and they taught you how to commend, recommend, commend. That's really how you commend someone, give a critique, and commend, so forth. Or the outline of a speech, opening, body, and close. Yes, those are the things you do, but you don't broadcast what you're doing. I'm about to open, and I'm about to close. And same with your elevator pitches and so forth. It's really invisible. And it's really having a conversation with someone. This is what I do. I help people that have this sort of problem or facing these sort of issues. That's it.
And you mentioned Toastmasters. There's also that business network that's been around for many years, that breakfast network.
BNI.
Yes. Have you been involved in that?
Yeah, two totally different things. Toastmasters is about one thing: communication skills. And I joined Toastmasters. I was very, very young, in my 20s, and it was a place to improve my communication skills and a little bit network, but really about communication skills. And I got people today, friends today, that have gone on, and we tracked their careers. Everyone's gone off to in their own ways and have very successful careers. And part of the reason for that is you need, and I'll go back to the education system, they don't teach people how to speak and persuade and sell. And those are the two things we need in today's society more than anything else. If you can do those two things, you always have a job. You always make a living somewhere or somehow. Um, so Toastmasters is about communication skills, and it's a deliberate way to improve them rapidly. BNI is about networking and getting leads and so forth. That works for certain industries and certain occupations. Not so well for services, but it does have some application to it. So to answer that further, the advantage BNI provides and others is a structured way of networking. It's a structured environment, you know the routine and so forth, versus open networking where you're just walking into the room and hoping for the best. So there's two different organizations.
Fantastic. And at this point, I'd just love to throw in one of our 3 questions, which is, what's the meaning of life for you?
The meaning of life for me is having fun and doing what you love, and keep doing what you love. And that may change over time. You know, just because you live here or born there doesn't mean you always do that. So for me, that keeps evolving. Hopefully it will continue to evolve. What I'm doing, what I'm living today may not be what I'm living 25 years from now, or 50 years. I'm being really optimistic. But yeah, it should be a continual pattern. One of my favorite quotes: "The road to excellence is constantly under construction." And so you want to keep doing that.
Yeah, I always say most fun wins. So I'm with you on that one. And I think doing what you do best with other people doing what they do best together is the most fun to me.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense, doesn't it? So having fun on the job when you're working on your, in your own business, how much input do your clients have to that fun for you?
Results.
Mm.
Results is the name of the game, and it's that one of the P's I talk about. The second P, positioning, performance, persuasion, packaging, promotion. The performance is key there, because that's having fun. They're getting results, and I'm having fun delivering the results. I'm having fun helping them take the bar to the next level, sort of thing. So it's about results, and that performance leads on to other things.
Yeah, look, I'm starting to doubt you now. You were saying that, sales is something you can learn. You're not a born salesman, but I have a sneaking suspicion you might be a born salesman, because you just live and breathe this enthusiasm for it, and you have fun by the sounds of things, regardless of the outcome. So how do you get through a difficult day?
Oh, you just some days you don't. You just say that's it. That's the end of the day, and that was a bummer. Other times depends on what the difficulty is, a client issue, whatever the case may be. I also realistic. Just because the morning was a bummer doesn't mean the rest of the afternoon is a bummer, or because a client was in a bad mood doesn't spread the whole day. But I'll push back there. I'm not a natural salesperson. No one is. And it's something we learn along the way. We adapt and learn to our environment. We adapt to learn what we sell. We do it out of sometimes necessity, or whatever the case may be, until it becomes a habit or a way of doing it. And today I'm on a podcast, so my on switch is on a different way. But in front of a client or a group, it'll be on a different way, sort of thing. So it's about flexing. And but yeah, no one's born a natural salesperson, except for the first 2 years of our lives. We're persuading to get something to eat, and all the things our parents give us.
Wonderful. And what's the most exciting thing that you've learnt recently?
The most exciting thing I have learned recently was that I can it comes in, well, it's a couple of areas, but it really comes about I learned how to refocus, in certain areas. So some things I was struggling with, took a step back and thinking, oh, I've looked at it in a whole new light. I'm right in the middle of writing a book at the moment, and in between writing that book, my outline, everything else, I had a couple of gaps in knowledge, and I just needed to drill down. And I've looked at this before, but because maybe I didn't have the need, or it wasn't a priority, I looked at this in a whole different light and got it in 30 seconds, what I needed to go and so forth. So it's really about looking at things in different light, and being able to take that and repackage it up into my own format and style.
Could you tell us what a couple of those insights were?
Yeah, there's a couple of insights on productivity and time management. There's a couple of insights on accountability. And there's a couple of insights on, I use the word jargon. Quite often use jargon, jargon is the special language of a niche market or the marketplace. And so I just had a new angle, different way of presenting that I ordinarily would not have if I didn't stop and pause for 30 seconds to revisit that thinking and think, yeah, this is a better way to approach that.
Well, time management is one of my weaknesses. So could you tell us the insight that you've had with that?
Yeah, get rid of your to-do list. Stop using to-do lists. Instead, when you feel that when something goes on your list, schedule it straight away and live in your calendar. So as I say, if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't get done. And that'll eliminate most of the tasks that you want to do. Either that, you get rid of the task. But most things you just put in the calendar. And that's I've been doing that for a while, but I started focusing a little more, firstly in my writing and also in my teaching with clients. And I started revisiting some of my approaches. And now I don't carry a to-do list, and it goes into my calendar if it needs to be done.
Brilliant. And an insight on the jargon?
The jargon is really about drilling down. So you got to get clear in your marketplace. For instance, who is your ideal buyer? What is your buyer? Who's your ideal buyer? And where do they hang out, where they live, where they're associated with? Now, you can have more than one market. So whilst I say financial services in my marketplace, it's actually banking, insurance, finance, accounting, legal, or services. Each one of those has their own jargon along the way. So I have a pretty rich jargon vocabulary for those markets, and I can switch, very quickly from one to the other and so forth. But it's being very broad. Now, those jargon terms mean exactly the same thing. They just present them differently for, in certain sections of the marketplace. So yeah, jargon is about really understanding your marketplace. And when you have the jargon right, that shows up when you're speaking to a buyer. So I'm speaking to an insurance executive. I'm talking about loss ratios, combined ratios, acquisition costs. I'm speaking to a lawyer. We're talking about rainmaking. We're talking about client penetration and so forth. So it's understanding how the language works in those marketplaces, and that shows up in your proposals. It shows up when you're speaking. Shows up in your writing.
Brilliant. And what was the third? You said time management and the jargon, and what was the one in the middle?
The one in the middle was I think positioning or knowledge. There's been lots of them. Which one?
I think it was knowledge. Yeah.
Knowledge, yes.
Yes,
knowledge.
Tell us about that.
Knowledge is about increasing your knowledge, not about you getting smarter, but becoming more aware. Now, knowledge falls in the category of drilling down into your niche market, but it's also capturing your knowledge. So I keep a couple ways I do that. I have some file boxes at home, and file cabinets electronically arranged by topic areas, several topic areas in my marketplace. And I capture little things. It could be something I read in the paper or whatever the case may be. And that sort of builds up. And what happens when that builds up, you have a lot of buckets. And after a while, when you're reading something, you recognize it straight away. That comes up with jargon, some of the things I was just talking about. It comes up straight, you identify it straight away, and you're thinking, oh, that belongs in that bucket over here. And that belongs in that bucket over here. And you start to continually improve that way.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard of anything like that before, but it does make sense because I used to take copious notes, read a book and take copious notes, and then that was filed away, never to be seen again. And really, if I just encapsulated the main points of that book and then put it in one of those files, then I would have been able to use that knowledge.
Yeah, it's just some of the buckets, a lot of my buckets, whilst they're physically there, they're mental also. So I can read something and know what category that might fall into and so forth. I use a lot of 8x5 cards, not 3x5 or 8x5 cards, so I can capture a lot of things on there. And I draw, my doodle, my map, or anything like that, anything that's going to capture it, and I'll park it into one of those topics. And it might sit there for a year. I had something I pulled out the other day. It's been sitting there for a year. I'm writing a chapter and also preparing something for a client. I had to pull up, and I had a whole deck of cards in that area, and I was able to grab 2 or 3 ideas, and that solved the issue I was looking for, the problem I was trying to solve for a client.
So that's a fantastic tip for collating your ideas and collating, it's essentially a knowledge bank that you've got,
Mhm.
which is wonderful. What else would you recommend to people who are needing support in sales and marketing? Do you have any other tips?
Yeah, read widely, and depending on if you're in business to business sales or um, business to consumer of your services, there's some basic foundation that you can start with from there. And then it's getting help to help you fit that to you. The books only take you so far. Then you need to get, I'll use the word coaching or help or assistance from someone to help you mold that into your own style and so forth. I've been doing this long enough now that I can recognize something and think, oh yeah, I can use that. And so it's like the buffet. So in your case, you got to build your buffet because you don't know what you don't know. But read widely and continue to read widely and start formulating your own topic areas and buckets, and then work out what to do with that.
And then, so you also mentioned then moving into getting assistance because the book, as you said, or a series of books aren't enough. You need to go further than that, and this is where coaching comes in. How? Any suggestions on how professionals in the service sector can identify the best type of person to support them? I know you said earlier that, we each have a point of difference, but if you've got multiple players with a similar point of difference, how would they choose?
Recommendation, ask around. That's how a lot of most buying decisions are made in the business to business sector, corporate world. It's based on recommendations. That's why we put testimonials on our marketing material and so forth. But yeah, ask for recommendations. You can also try. So a few people, you read their newsletters, you follow their work for a while, and you start to whittle down. I've used very few coaches over the years, believe it or not, because I'm pretty good at taking and simulating what I need. However, I have used them for specialized assistance, but I knew what I was looking for, and I interviewed them and to see if there's a fit. And so forth. I looked at their track record. Did they deal in the types of areas that I need help in? I look at their client list. If they show it to me, who else do I know on there, and so forth. And between those two things, I'm thinking, yeah, I think you can help me.
That's great, and it sort of takes us full circle back to where we were a lot earlier, and that's around relationships. So if there's a referral, for example, it's not necessarily the relationship that you that gets you that client. It's the relationship that you have with someone that they already know and trust that gets you in that door. Yeah.
Referral's only the starting point. So the referral gets the fish on the line. You don't have to cast and wait for find the fish. The fish is you've already found the fish. The referral only takes you so far. You still need to bring it in and so forth. Referrals are the preferred way to work and the fastest way to work, is it just simply saves time. Which leads me on to, I'll just mention 3 other things that are important. When it comes to marketing your services, the three most effective approaches are reaching out. That means going out and contacting your marketplace. The second way is by networking in the right circles. And the third way is networking in the right circles. Those are the three most effective ways to market yourself if you're in the services industry. Everything else is a side act. Social media, billboards, adverts, whatever, it's a side act. That's the main show. And if you do that well, so if you reach out to the right people by email and able to find their hot button need, that warms up a cold call and follow up, of course. If you're able to network at the right associations, industry bodies where your buyers are, that saves time along the way there. So yeah.
And then so cold calling isn't as productive as obviously relationship building. How much time is spent on cold calling, do you think?
No one likes doing cold calling. It's unproductive, and unless you're in a boiler room in India, it's hard work. The best way to cold call, and we all have to do it time and time again, is to firstly identify who your likely market is. Secondly, you want to craft an email that addresses one or two hot button needs they have and send them that email. And if they don't respond back, you follow up with a phone call. And that can get you about a 15 to 20% response rate.
So the email is essentially an introduction of yourself and services to that person. But it sounds like when you say hot button, you're talking about the research that you would have done on that particular person or organization?
Yeah. So my opening line to a email like that might be, I recently read, congratulations on the merger of your company. I read it in the press today. I'm writing because I work with organizations like yours to achieve da 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 da. I have a couple of ideas that may be of interest to you. Would it make sense for us to set up a time for a 5 to 10 minute chat? That's it.
Yes.
And
I say yes.
Yeah. And a couple of things in there. Firstly, the emails are about, the first paragraph is about them. And that's why I do the research. I'm finding something to congratulate them on, or a problem that I've identified. Secondly, the second paragraph is about my value proposition. I work with companies like yours who want to do X. And the third paragraph is ideas. People love ideas. And so what I'm saying is I have some ideas that you might find useful to help you solve X. And then the fourth thing I did there, I used a very non-threatening soft close. Would it make sense for us to connect? Let's have a 5 to 10 minute conversation over the phone. That's not threatening. I'm not inviting myself over to dinner, for over the weekend or anything like that. It's non-threatening, and you'd be surprised how many people will come back to you, with the time. But even if they don't, it paves the way for a quick phone call, which will be exactly your email again.
And so is snail mail not fashionable anymore?
It works. However, a couple of things. The post office is so unreliable. I walk the talk. So I got an insurance company I've been courting. And we exchanged some emails. And we exchanged a brief 5-minute phone call. And I put together a little package to put in snail mail. 3 weeks later, it hadn't arrived. I know because my buyer by then had called me back to set up the time for us to talk further. It finally arrived maybe a week after that and so forth. So mail's unreliable. Email's quicker. Everyone reads their emails. And so when you write your emails conversationally in a business format, and it's no more than 90 to 125 words, that's it. It should take them a minute to read on their phone or anywhere. And that's the quickest way and most efficient way.
Yeah, that's brilliant, because then what you do is you hand deliver that book of yours or collection of book of yours, and away you go.
Yeah. And with the email, the second thing about email though, or any kind of reach out, you got to follow up. And so buyers are not going to phone you back. Sometimes you get lucky, they'll phone you back or respond back to you. But generally, about 3 to 5 days, I need to send another email. And maybe another week, I'll send another email. And then I'll phone, and then I'll park it. I won't get rid of it, I'll recycle it. My mindset is I had the wrong idea for this. I'll think of a new idea and I'll come back 6 months from now. And, so I recycle things.
And do you reach out to people on LinkedIn, direct message people on LinkedIn?
Yeah, okay. LinkedIn is like a giant flea market. However, it does have some useful purposes. To identify a buyer, I might be able to find them on LinkedIn. However, I still prefer to get his personal email address. And there's a program called Email Hunter. So I can put in any company's name and I can work out their how they structure their emails, so I can contact someone by email. I do use Messenger occasionally. I do recommend using Messenger. There's no other alternative. Because certain messages go to their home. A lot of people have their personal email address in their LinkedIn account. And so I like to keep business and private separate. The most effective way to use LinkedIn, in my view, is to generate referrals. And the way you do that is by finding your connections that you want to work with or people you know, and look at their contacts. And when you're going through, you're looking for people that fit your ideal client profile. And then you can go back to your contact and say, Dale, when I was on LinkedIn the other day, I saw 2 or 3 names that might be an ideal clients for me. I know you're connected to them. Can you brainstorm with me for a few minutes? I'd like to get your opinion on these 3 names and see if there's a fit. Now, after we do that, I might say, Dale, can I ask you another favor? 1 or 2 favors. Would you be willing to either provide me the introduction, or may I use your name and reference when I reach out to them? And
Excellent.
That's the best way to use LinkedIn. Anything else for LinkedIn, you're competing against a billion other people and so forth. But I want to zero in on it. I'll use LinkedIn also for research. I want to find out where you went to school, other positions. For instance, so this insurance buyer I've been courting. I looked at his LinkedIn profile, and I worked out that we used to work for the same company at different times. And at the other company is that I got a couple of clients there, the previous one he had. And so when I did my open email line, I said, I noticed from your profile, we worked at a similar company. And when I got on the phone, that was our open conversation. We played Who Knows Who, warmed up the call, built that trust and credibility. And then we sort of moved on from there.
Beautiful.
So this is sort of leading us to all this extraordinary knowledge that you have about sales and marketing and, how you could sell Australia. So if you were the boss of Australia, what would you do?
If I was the boss of Australia, what would I do? I don't know. It's a great country. Has a lot of. I'll be selling the benefits of the country. We spend a lot of time in our own country, banging our own selves. If I was the boss of Australia, I'd have an appreciation day where we stop and appreciate everything that we do well. Not what's wrong, but we do well in education, in health, in medicine, in transport, defense, and just reflect on the things we're doing well and why we're so lucky here.
Fantastic. What would you say what would you say is the culture of Australia?
I've always found Australia, and I first came out here in 1977 on a big aircraft carrier. And we've been sailing out in the ocean for ages, so we're happy to see anything when we hit land. But the one thing that struck us about Australia, it was like the United States, particularly the girls with blonde hair and all that stuff, and the flies, all that went with it. So it was very much like home to us. So we had a natural affinity with Australia, and it hasn't changed since then. Most Americans come out here. It's America 3 to 5 years behind. It used to be 25 years. It's close. It will never be equal, but the gap is closed along the way. Give you an example. We used to see blockbusters when I was here in the 80s. A movie get released in America, and we get it a year later, 6 months later. Now we're getting the same day, basically. clothes, records, and all that stuff. So that's where the gap is closing along the way. But yeah, it's a Western lifestyle here, more in line with America than Asia, in my view, on a lot of areas. But it's a Western lifestyle, good lifestyle, streets are safe, clean water, all those things. And for Americans, it's the number one holiday destination when you ask them. Yeah, I always want to go to Australia.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah, I think we've got a good rep over there. I think that they think we're pretty cool. You know, we've had some good exports, haven't we? So I think that you know, some good-looking, talented movie stars doesn't hurt, does it?
But I tell you what, I'll tell you something interesting though. Even before that, I got the Australian bug in me when I was about in grade 3, grade 4. I don't know why. I had this thing, I always wanted to go to Australia. And I don't know if I saw Skippy a kangaroo or so, I don't know what it was, but it was always in the back of my mind. And so when things simmer in the back of your mind subconsciously, funny things happen. So fast forward, I'm 10 years old then. 7 years later, I'm 17. I'm in the Navy, and I just finished technical school. So on the board there, they write out your assignments, your choices of assignments. And so for me, it was aircraft carriers, ships, land bases, and they were naming off each destination what it means. So they got to the Midway. And so the Midway is based in Japan. It tours the Indian Ocean and goes to Australia. That's all I needed to hear was Australia. And that's how I got here. But it was in the back of my mind from 10 years old. So it's just funny how those things work.
You
The
chose
opportunity
us.
arrives. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Fantastic.
Well, this has been great. Thanks so much, Clifton, for joining us today. You know, sales and marketing, you're right. You know, it's something you can learn. And certainly with an expert like you, you know, there's an opportunity for so many people to build those skill sets and know that there's always help at hand to improve their own businesses through your expertise.
Yes, thank you so much, Clifton. I am going to do quite a few things very differently from your wisdom. So I'm grateful for that. And hopefully we can get these ideas into the schools. That'd be brilliant. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.